It was still like, was this the era where everybody started going like, meh?
That's the 1920s. I'm aware of when the meh started.
Was it the 1920s that meh happened?
Yeah, the 1920s.
Okay, this is 1890s. So
the onset of the mob and the prohibition. And it's like you'll never get me, coppers, meh.
Yeah, so we were 30 years away from meh. Okay. All right, welcome back to another episode of Chaotic Underground. I'm one of your hosts, Z Diggity, aka Zach. Joining me is Ryan Damask and Steven Bonsai Bandit. How you guys doing?
Hi, I'm doing good. How are you, man?
Doing pretty good, man.
Doing good. I just came off of a nice little research bin of our current topic, and yeah, I'm ready to get going. How was your week, real quick? What's going on with you guys?
Yeah, no, it's been going pretty good. It's been a really busy week at work, but new expansion thing for New World came out, so I've been jumping back into it, and it's been a lot of fun. It's actually been just a nice, peaceful, relaxing, don't think about it type of game, just to zone out.
I've missed that with MMOs personally. I hopped into it too, but I haven't had as much time. It's been a crazy week for me at work as well, just nonstop. So. Just trying to keep busy. You know me, never stopping. So,
dude, I spent like an hour the other night watching that new Gen B episode I was behind on, and just like cutting down trees, and it was best.
It's like MMOs are like my favorite games to like stream, because it's legit. You're just idly doing stuff and shooting the shit with people. Like that's why I like MMOs.
Yeah.
But Steven, how about you?
Well, it's been a very busy week. I have been taking steps to help my health, somewhat against my better judgment.
Against your better judgment?
That's to your better judgment.
To whatever you want to say. I'm having trouble getting into it again. But I've been keeping track of my diet and exercising.
Are you on the macro diet?
Yes, I am. As a matter of fact. It's something I've lost 5 pounds in the last 2 weeks. So
hell yeah, dude, that's awesome. Yeah, macro diet's the way to go in my opinion. Like I think that's the best way.
It allows me the most flexibility. But I went to the gym. I've been going to the gym again, and all I know is that all of my muscles are in pain. So it just tells me I clearly should have been doing it sooner. But it's been fun, as much as I complain and make jokes about it, because I feel better. And then just working at the new job.
The one thing I keep trying to tell myself is that like, when my muscles hurt the most from working out, that's like how I know I'm putting in like good workouts and like doing it good. Like,
yeah,
that's what keeps me going.
Exactly. Yeah, so like it's like a workout to fatigue, but not through fatigue thing. You know, I was actually talking with a friend about it the other night. But anyway, I'm glad you guys are doing well. I have
speaking of
Steven's killing it.
Speaking of murder,
much like
speaking of murder. We're going to hop into the world of H.H. Holmes, America's technically first serial killer. Have you guys heard of him at all?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Of course. Who hasn't?
I saw him on Supernatural. So
you saw him on the Supernatural. Was he really on the Supernatural episode? Like, was he?
He was on a Supernatural episode. Absolutely.
Like, as a ghost, or as a demon, or as a
ghost? As a ghost. Well, the big reveal at the end of the episode is that the ghost was H.H. Holmes. America's first serial killer. Yeah,
I think I briefly remember that episode, but they all
like he has a bowler hat and a mustache, and he's like they're in the murder dungeon and they're fighting him with a crowbar,
like every good serial killer.
Yeah.
I mean, why don't we just hop right into it? Actually, because in my opinion, this guy, if there is a goat of serial killers, I think this guy is it. We're going to start with his childhood, first off. We'll start in his early days in the year of 1861 in Gilmanton, New Hampshire. His original name was Herman Webster Mudgett, or Herman Mudgett, later known as H.H. Holmes. He was a newborn.
Good change.
I was going to say, now I get it. I get why he went that route. I mean, if I was named Mudgett, I would too.
Yeah, Mudgett doesn't exactly roll off the tongue. Exactly.
Elementary must have been murder for him.
What'd you call me? I'm going to kill you and everyone else I come across.
Yeah, and build my own castle dedicated to it. Well, so Holmes wasn't a regular kid. As he grew up, he had an unconventional and eerie tendency.
You don't say.
He was a little weird. Yeah. his unconventional and eerie tendencies began to surface in his younger years. A bright student, he chose an unusual path, enrolling in the medical school at the University of Michigan. But his ambitions went far beyond medicine. Instead of using his knowledge for good, he ventured into the criminal underworld. And mind you, he only was able to attend medical school because he this is kind of where the beginnings of of him being a con artist starts. He married the local rich girl and had her pay for his med school. And you'll notice as we go through the stories, a lot of these patterns will develop. So he attended med school, and that's where Holmes essentially kind of started really seriously kind of getting exposed to like very macabre things, dissecting bodies, cadavers. He spent a long time just in the mortuary of the school working with dead bodies. And a lot of experts speculate that he kind of started getting these real, like, leveling up, as you would say.
Where's Mudgett? Is he down in the basement again, messing with cadavers? He's been down there for days.
That guy's fucking weird. Just keep him down there, I know.
That's not fair. That's not fair. Like, okay. So I know that serial killers tend to kind of manifest some of their weirdness from an early age, realistically. And there is a weird parallel, I guess, between medical students and murderers. Like, there's definitely like a clear fork in the road for some of them.
Yeah. Well, so the thing with him working with these cadavers, you'll find out what would essentially be, at least at the time, the medical university's kind of like dirty little secret that everybody kind of knew about is, you know how like hospitals and universities will have these skeletons on display and these cadavers for them to dissect and everything. They would, they're supposed to get them through legal means, whether people donating their bodies through science and everything, but the actual studies of if they were to legally do everything, like the universities, that is, to obtain these bodies, they would only obtain about 20% of the bodies required for them to have their school or their education program function. So everybody kind of like knew about the fact that the way that the universities got their bodies was less than reputable, whether it be skeletons, whether it be grave robbing or people killing them or taking drifters. And so everybody kind of knew about it.
There was a lucrative market for grave robbers to take the bodies out of freshly dug graves and sell them to universities and schools.
Oh yeah, and you'll find later in the story that this was Mudgett's bread and butter down the road.
I mean,
we gotta start calling him.
No, his name is Mudgett.
I can't.
His name is Mudgett, man. Do you know the Mudgett Man?
Oh God. I just, it's, you know,
who lives on Grifter's Lane?
Yeah.
I think it's not really fair to start with like, he's the weird dude for, experimenting on bodies in a field that is literally about operation. Like, is he, I guess it's a bigger question. It's like, is he going through med school for like to be a surgeon, or is he going through medical school for fun?
I mean, to become a doctor back then, you basically just had to like show up and be like, "Where's my doctor name tag?" I don't know. Medicine wasn't exactly in its.
Here, take some opium. You'll be okay.
Put a leech on it. Here's some opium for it.
Yeah, really curious what was going on up there in Mudgett's noggin.
Well, he got exposed to the world of he basically found out that there was a business model, an underground business model for grave robbing and selling corpses to university, and that's kind of where he first got exposed, which would be the to that lifestyle, I guess we would call it, and that would be the antithesis to a lot of the crimes that he would continue throughout the later in his life. However, insurance fraud was his gateway crime. It was just kind of a stepping stone. Holmes soon escalated his dark pursuits, conducting experiments on cadavers. This was his basically kind of crash course in the macabre that would prepare him for the horrors that he would actually commit in the future.
I love that you refer to it as a lifestyle. Like, he just one day woke up and was like, you know what? I have a specific way I want to live, and I think it involves cadavers and grave robbing.
All right, let's fast forward to 1886. Holmes, now the master of deception, made his way to Chicago. However, it wasn't the city's iconic skylines or its delectable deep dish pizza that attracted him. No, Holmes had something far more sinister in mind. He began constructing what would be known as
The Bears.
Ditka Bulls.
Sorry.
Oh no, don't apologize for that. The Murder Castle wasn't exactly just an ominous name. It was an actual real life like House of Horrors. He actually built this thing. He designed an entire 3-level building, like industrial building for murders.
And like, did he name it this like up front, or was it like he was like he built this really cool place and he was like, oof, could probably use this for murders. I think
he personally called it the castle. And then
castle
or Murder Castle. Sorry.
And then headlines later in his career, his murdering career, would actually dub it the Murder Castle. But
how egotistical do you need to be to call your house a castle? Like, and not like cringe from the moment you said it to other people.
I mean, if you saw the interior of this place, he did make this thing like a labyrinth, and the actual basement of the castle looked like a dungeon. He had like a torture rack on there. He had a glass, like he would dispose of the bodies in a kiln or a furnace that he claimed was for used for like glass bending and glass blowing. And he would like use he had this acid that would dissolve the skin off the bones, and he'd bleach the bones and sell the skeletons. It was wild, and this was all in the basement. But the castle itself, the castle itself had like trapdoors, secret rooms, chambers that would fill with poison gas. I mean, the place was essentially a masterpiece, and it was designed to actually lure, trap, and torment. It was like a bait castle because he modeled it as a hotel. The lower levels. Oh,
what era was this in again? I'm sorry. Like what was the time frame?
This was about in 1886, 1880,
okay.
Like in the mid 1880s time period. But it was a 3-level building. The basement, of course, being the place where he disposed the bodies and do all his experiments on them. The main floor would be where all the businesses were. He had a bunch of businesses down below. And then the second floor would be essentially the hotel. And then there was a third floor as well, which is just kind of another room where he'd keep like random, I don't know, just fucked up murder shit there. And
so this is a massive.
This place was huge.
Like, it really was like a castle.
Like think of like a modern day hotel, like I'm not saying like a Radisson or a Hilton or anything like that. I'm like a 3-story hotel.
It took up like a block.
Yeah, a full block. It was a
full
big,
block. Okay.
And he designed the entire interior to disorient people and to like prevent them from being able to find their way out. And then people would walk into the rooms, he'd lock them in, gas them, like turn on a gas, and then he'd have a peephole and he'd watch them die as they asphyxiate and everything. He had
God dang, this place is like if Stephen King got a hold of Kowloon.
Yeah. So inside the Murder Castle, Holmes executed a lot of his plans there. He preferred to prey on like younger women. He used the promises of jobs or a place to stay as essentially bait. Once inside, his victims found themselves trapped in a nightmarish labyrinth of death. And he would the thing about Holmes is he liked to play this game where he would seduce women and pretend that he was just a normal dude. He'd like be with them for 5 to 6 months. And then once he got tired with them or they rejected him in any way, he'd just kill them, essentially.
Wait, okay. So I have a couple questions. My first one is essentially he went from weird kid, married rich woman, went to med school.
You'll find that like he was an incredibly charismatic dude, and he talked himself out of so many close calls to the point where he felt invincible near the end. And you'd be surprised, he was essentially the first serial killer to take advantage of modern society or a bureaucratic system to his advantage. And there's instances where cops would legit show up to the Murder Castle and he'd have bodies just hidden everywhere, and he would just be like, oh no, they left town, I heard they got married and moved to California, and the cops would be like, okay. And
this sounds more in line with like Ted Bundy than like BTK and Richard Ramirez and all those guys.
I definitely agree with you. I think he was a Ted Bundy type. But I think he was a bit more organized than, I mean, don't get me wrong, Ted Bundy was organized, but
to be fair, he had the resources. That's what I'm getting away from this. Like he could afford to build the castle across an entire block in a major city. Like,
Well,
what city is this?
This is Chicago.
Yeah, in Chicago.
Yeah.
You know,
and this is during right when the World's Fair was happening as well. So he basically built this right before the World's Fair was going to happen, and so he would have a unlimited amount of victims that he would just lure into his hotel and kill. And it's funny, you said he had the resources. He got all the resources from insurance fraud. And what he would do is he would commit insurance fraud. He would essentially fake deaths and replace the bodies with cadavers and collect like 20K paychecks, 30K paychecks. And essentially he faked his own death and replaced, this is kind of a funny story. He had a college friend who they work on cadavers together on the regs daily. And for this scam, he had a $20,000 payout. He ended up killing this college friend and using his college friend's body to pass as his own body to collect a 20K paycheck. And then he hightailed it to Chicago to open up this murder castle.
Wait, did he Jeez. Like tape a mustache on his college friend and be like, haha, got him?
I mean,
this is the 1800s, dude. Everyone had those mustaches.
Yeah.
It just reminds me of A Million Ways to Die in the West. And
I just
the mustachery with Neil Patrick Harris playing.
I mean, through the entire time I was reading this and like seeing pictures of him and everything, I almost guarantee, at least in my head, that he had that ridiculous mustache to disguise himself, to make him look more generic. They don't really directly mention anything in the research, but it just, you look at any pictures of somebody in the 1880s or the 1890s, they all have the haberdasher hats, they all have the mustache, they all have canes. You know,
I love how unmissable people are during this time. Like, and I guess like gullible. There's this like element, but you know, I can't really say that because I extended even into the future. You know, he tells them, oh, they must have got married and moved to California, and they'd be like, all right, sir, thank you. And then you get to like a Jeffrey Dahmer, and he's got like fucking bodies being dissolved in his bathtub and like heads in his freezer.
Mm-hmm.
And the cops show up and he's like, no, he's not here. And they go, awesome. And then they leave, you know, like I remember that being a case with Jeffrey Dahmer being like, he was this close to being caught. As a matter of fact, one of his victims escaped. The police brought them back.
Well, that's
a whole thing. But
Dahmer had that whole 1-bedroom apartment. Okay, so he had a 1-bedroom apartment. Holmes had a freaking 3-story, 4-story murder hotel, basically.
Sounds like a skill issue.
So to dispose of the bodies, because he do most of this on the 2nd and 3rd floor, he actually had a body chute that he would grease. He would cover with grease, and he'd drop the bodies down the chute. But it wasn't just like he'd drop a chute and it was a straight drop into the basement. It was like this really long, like insane process where he would drop the body into the chute, then he would have to navigate to the bathroom. This is part of the reason he made it look like such a labyrinth. And he could drag a body into the chute without anybody seeing it, navigate down to the 2nd floor to get the body out of the 2nd chute, drop it into another chute, use a secret entrance in the bathroom to go down to the, like, it was a very well thought out and complex thing.
I just imagine he's like, finally, I built it. It's complete. The murder house is done. And he's like, shit, I forgot the body chutes. We're just going to have to figure out where to put the body chutes. We just have to put them in different places on each floor.
Like it was like a total contracting error. And the entire time people like he would hire these guys to build it, and they really wouldn't question what they were building. And and
he's like, yeah, I'd like a nice marble countertop right here, maybe some brass shower heads, body chute over there.
Oh wait, I'm sorry. What'd you say, sir? What'd you say, sir?
Brass shower heads. Yeah, body chute over there.
Inspiration strikes.
I mean, he definitely leaned into his charm and his debonair, as you would say.
I've seen this guy's pictures. Like, clearly standards were lower in the 1880s.
I mean, he truly was a monster, and the way he would the way he would mutilate the bodies after, like, he not only would like strip the flesh off of them and sell the skeletons, He like there's one guy, like one of his coworker, like or acquaintances, came in and he was showing him.
I love how your transition went from me trying to talk about his looks and his like charisma during that period compared to now. And you immediately were like, "Oh yeah, bodies and death," and I'm like, what?
The guy was a serial killer, Steven. What do you want me to talk about?
I don't know. Didn't he do anything else? Did he like?
No,
he have a cooking hobby.
He had a barber. He had a barber shop, and that was about it. And he did.
Is he the inspiration for Sweeney Todd?
Probably. I don't know. That's a great musical, by the way. But anyway,
musical.
back to.
I appreciate the music that you introduced me to.
He had a coworker, like an acquaintance, that he actually showed the basement. And like on the table was a mutilated body, and the guy actually accounted for it, like in a newspaper or a police report. And he was just like, "Yeah, when I saw the body, it looked like a jackrabbit. I really couldn't see. Like it was a human corpse that it looked like that Holmes mutilated to a point where it looked like a jackrabbit."
Are jackrabbits human sized?
I mean, he did go to med school, so he wasn't like just willy-nilly mutilating him. Like he did know his way around a knife, and he would do this over and over and over again with different victims, and he'd hire all these young women to come in and work for him. And then 6 months later, they just disappear. And then everybody just kind of believed him that, oh yeah, they left, or I fired her, or they went to California and got married. She went to California on a trip and decided to stay there. Was kind of one of his go-tos.
To be fair, this is the era of like you can't really keep track of people with like cell phones or text message or anything. Like if somebody's like, I'm moving to California, and they go, you just have to trust anybody that talked to them. Like, so I kind of get where I feel like it's less about his charisma and more about communication methods during that time period.
I mean, he definitely took advantage of the fact that there wasn't really any documentation or we weren't really good at it back then. And there really was no set in stone way to identify bodies other than be like, yeah, that kind of looks like him, I guess. And
I low-key love Ryan's just observation over there in the middle, just being like, yes, talk about death some more. I appreciate it.
So the number of victims that he supposedly killed is kind of hard to pinpoint. Some sources suggest that Holmes may have claimed as many as 200 lives.
He claimed 200. He claimed over 200.
Did he claim over 200? Like, he claimed 27, I thought. Because the research I had, he claimed 27, and then people speculate that he claimed 200.
I was just reading, and it could have been just something weird, but it said after he was arrested, he claimed to have killed over 200 people in the castle.
Gotcha. I mean, yeah, there's really no way to pinpoint it. The guy was basically murdering people since med school and well into his 30s, but he did have he eventually did meet his like demise, and ironically it's it's his own hubris that kind of did it.
You don't say.
Yeah, he finally got caught up with. It was an unlikely twist of fate involving one of Holmes's criminal accomplices, Benjamin Pitezel. Benjamin Pitezel was a con artist and an associate of H.H. Holmes. Pitezel was originally from St. Louis, Missouri, and involved in various criminal activities. In a collaboration with Holmes, Pitezel joined Holmes in a fraudulent insurance scam yet again. The plan involved faking.
I'm so sorry.
You're fine. You're fine. The plan involved faking Pitezel's death to a claim of life insurance policy with the understanding that Pitezel would then reappear and collect the money. Tragically, the plan took a horrifying turn, and Pitezel was killed, not as part of a ruse, but what appeared to be a cold-blooded murder by none other than his partner in crime, H.H. Holmes, who staged his death and made it look like an accident and attempted to collect insurance money. Now, he burned him to death to disfigure the body. And Holmes's own journals, he basically describes all the screams and pleads that Pitezel did the entire time he was being tortured and murdered. And he basically responded in the journals like, I felt nothing. So true sociopath serial killer here.
I read a little bit of the other things. This guy has like no remorse for any actions.
No, not at all. He was a monster through and through. And the entire time, and the thing is Pitezel while Peitzel wasn't a perfect individual, he was a raging alcoholic. He was a con artist. He was a rogue. He was a scoundrel. He had a family that he did everything for. Everything they did, he did for his family. And he kind of got his family in on the caper a little bit, but he didn't tell them exactly what was going on. His wife knew what was going on as far as the insurance scam, but the kids didn't. But there's one day he got like super drunk and he like told his daughter, he's like, if you see in the paper that I'm dead, don't believe it. And it just led to some real awkward family issues. But
how did this get him caught?
So when he murdered Peitzel, he essentially told his wife, "Is like, oh yeah, your husband Peitzel is he's on the run right now, and I will take you to him." So he grabbed his wife, and well, he took his kids essentially, and Peitzel's kid, he had a bunch of kids, and took them with him, and he one by one began to murder these children because he considered this family as a loose end to the insurance scam. And
right.
Yeah, he ended up like, and of course the guy was a monster. He did some fucked up things to these kids. Like he essentially made a portable gas chamber that with a trunk that was lined with tar, and he gassed these two girls in the trunk. They were like 7 and 8, around that age, very young. And these young girls were writing letters to their families this entire time, and the letters would never get delivered. Holmes would not deliver them. And what ultimately got him in trouble was he was apprehended, and they found that he still had these letters, and they were able to track the bodies of all these kids and where they were and when they were, to ultimately apprehend H.H. Holmes.
This man had a day off, and that's the only reason he got caught. That's pretty much what I'm getting from this, is like he kept his trophies too close to the chest, and he just got caught with it.
I don't even think they were trophies. I think they were more just him. I
like an afterthought.
Yeah, like just letters. He just had them on him. And the son of the I think the youngest was a boy. The son, he ended up like chopping the son up and storing him up a chimney in some random house in the Midwest. And they were able to find this house based off of the letters that were sent. And they found the kid stuffed up there in a chimney.
That is some very just like random moment. When you think about like murders and kind of like the way some of these people get away with it, it's like there's just these random places that it happens, and nobody takes it seriously. Nobody looks at these places, and it just happens that he has these letters. Like, it's just a faux pas. He had a faux pas that caught him after all these years.
Yeah, ultimately, and so the thing is like, I don't think he was as smart as, like, don't get me wrong, he was an intelligent individual. But I do think that we were dealing with some very, very lackadaisical law enforcement. A lot of people in Chicago, like Chicago was a go city, and the World's Fair was just kind of like causing all this mayhem in the city. So I think people just didn't really pay too much attention to him. So yeah,
to think this guy could have been an engineer. I'm just saying, like, when you think about, you think about the whole thing is he's come up with all these contraptions. He's designed so much. Mm-hmm. That's an engineer's kind of ingenuity. And instead he decided to murder people. Weird like shift.
Well, like an example of like the how ignorant people were towards this entire thing. Like, he had a literal torture rack in his chamber, and they tie the ropes onto the legs and arms, and you basically break them on the rack. And he claimed it was because he was trying to make a race of giants on Earth, and people were like, "Oh yeah," but it was clearly just a torture rack. Yeah, he claimed that he was trying to. Yeah. They like. So now we know the origin story of the Giant of Kandahar.
The H.H. Holmes special.
The H.H. Holmes special, yeah.
It's 1886. They believed in a lot of things. I think they still did bloodletting back then, so whatever.
I mean, they did it was still like, was this the era where everybody started going like, meh?
That's the 1920s.
It's around
I'm
there.
aware of when the meh started.
Was it the 1920s that happened?
Yeah, the 1920s.
Okay, this is 1890s. So
the onset
we're
of the mob and the prohibition. And it's like you'll never get me, coppers, man.
so we were 30 years away from meh. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like this was kind of like the tail end part of like Wild Westy type shit. Though I mean, this is in that sweet spot where like you can still get away with a lot of crimes. Yeah. Like technology was nowhere
and you
yet.
can't even blame it on being far away from people. Like he was in Chicago. They were just too fucking busy. They were too fucking busy to notice somebody built a murder castle. But to be fair, he was very secretive about it until he decided to murder a family for some reason. Like I don't like it. It just seemed maybe it's.
I mean,
comfort.
everything was
in, like routine. You know,
most of his murder, like he definitely had that serial killer disposition. You know, where he fantasizes about killing people. A lot of his murders were sexual, especially with the young women. He married like a million times, and I
never got divorced. He was married to all these people at once.
I mean, yeah, he was pretty good at bigamy, but they did die. So I think that null and voids the marriage when they're dead, right?
Well, before he went to Chicago, like he had married like 3 times without getting divorces. Is what I read.
He didn't leave Chicago for all that?
I mean, he did flee Chicago at one point. Like during this entire time thing with Peitzel, that's when he essentially fled Chicago. Not before setting his hotel, his murder castle, on fire to collect insurance, because insurance was his game, and most of his scams were essentially insurance fraud. And
so no one discovered the murder castle until after he set it on fire?
Funny you should say that, because the city and the tabloids and the journalists started getting wise. So they started posting tabloids saying essentially like another murder at the H.H. Holmes murder castle. Meh. And
that's
so
not how it happened.
That's exactly, yeah. They essentially, this is like near the end of his career, people would the journalists would be like, these are the headlines.
Oh my gosh.
And cops would be like, Holmes, did you kill him?
Wasn't me.
Didn't kill him.
You can call me whatever you want, but it bounces off of me and sticks to you like glue.
The cops eventually did break in, and then it was like definitely like their name is mud through the entire time. Like they're walking in and they're like, oh, this is clearly where you'd store a body. This is clearly where there's a pit with a bunch of lime substance in here, or bleach in here. There's a vat of acid. That's clearly where they found bones and bones of bones buried, and a bunch of women's clothing in the basement, and women's shoes in the basement. It was just
but it sounds like despite all of that, like he was a very charismatic person. Like he was a very sweet talker, and had money.
Yeah, he had money
from all his insurance scams. So I mean, I would be hard pressed to not say he was probably bribing people to look the other way.
They don't really mention anything about him actually bribing him, because everything I read that he was just hard to prove. Yeah, but he did write his own journals and everything. Like he has his own journals that people have read, and he mentions nothing of bribery, at least of the ones I've read, with bribing people. He legit was just a charming, debonair, likable guy.
I love the idea of like him being like super concerned about self-incrimination in his journals about bribery, and then being like, man, it was great murdering that girl. Things got wild.
I just imagine like they're like, yeah, HH, we need to come look in your basement, and there's like a murder rack, and he just like slips a 20 on top of the murder rack.
He's like, that,
why don't you just look the other way?
That's $1,000 in 2023 money. Just hold on to that bad boy.
Is that the actual like? Is that the actual?
I don't know the
translation?
actual translation, but
let's find out real quick. What is $20? What is $20 in 1880? That would be $600.
Hey, look at that! Yeah.
Roughly $600.
All right, I'll make it 25.
Whoa,
you're a bit of a stickler, aren't you?
I can see you need a little more grease on those wheels. I feel like he kind of missed an opportunity to like hold himself up in his murder castle and then just murder anybody that tried to investigate.
Yeah, speaking of grease, I wouldn't stand under that chute. Let's move you
Move you
over.
over here a little bit.
And
The cops found.
I have to address this. Like, why didn't he hole up in the murder house, and then every time somebody ran into a room that he could seal off and gas, like he didn't just gas them all, and like you never know.
I mean, I imagine it was a little bit more complex than that because he had to, of course, like he was a very, very careful killer, but he did fuck up obviously a few times. Like he definitely had to find like an alibi as to why they left. He couldn't just like have somebody show up and then they just disappear on day one. So like it was a lot of planning and him picking and choosing his victims. And again, mostly young women. He did murder males, but a lot of his, especially near the end of his career, he was murdering women for the most part. There one.
He found it. He found his like Mona Lisa.
Did he find like well, he found a woman that he claimed that he loved, that he regretted killing. And she had a very lucrative plot of land in Texas that he was interested in. That's why he essentially wooed and swooned her. And she was incredibly gullible. Her name was Minnie, and she was incredibly gullible, but she had a sister that wasn't as gullible. So the entire time she was throwing herself in the arms of H.H. Holmes, her sister was like, I don't know, there's something up with this guy. And so eventually he just lured them into their house and murdered them both. He ended up locking Minnie in the vault and asphyxiated her with gas. And then to speed up the process, he spread some sort of acid on the floor to asphyxiate her faster. So when the cops found the vault, they found her footprint etched into the wall of the vault and trying to push it open while he just sat there, listened and watched. And they eventually found her skeleton at university and confiscated
because
the
he
skeleton.
made money off of her. He bleached the bones and sold it to university, right?
He made a profit off of most of his victims. Like ever the accountant Holmes is, he would murder them or donate the cadavers for dissection, donate them for bones.
It's like such a complicated. It was such like a complicated process. It seems like where he would essentially have to like kill two people and then like report an insurance claim on one of them, replace their body with the other victim, and then take that body and take the skeleton and sell it to a college. Like,
yeah, I feel I'm
what
like
a multitasker. What a multi.
I just picture like Bundy and Dahmer and Gacy up there talking to Holmes, and then just doing like the Laurence Olivier, Dustin Hoffman conversation on the Marathon Man set, where he's like, "Oh, why didn't you just try killing them? It'll be so much more fun and burying them." Yeah, it's where he just went through this multi-tiered process to overcomplicate it. But he did this for years, many years. Like, so he didn't get caught. He had 1 week. He had, like you said, one off day, and that's what got him caught. So, all right, we'll wind it down. So the trial of H.H. Holmes was nothing short of a macabre spectacle, attracting throngs of spectators eager to witness the downfall of the so-called Devil in the White City. In a move as chilling as his crimes, Holmes chose to represent himself, much like our good friend Ted Bundy, and himself in court, and his demeanor remained eerily unrepentant through the entire proceedings. Justice essentially was served. Holmes was found guilty on May 7th, 1896, and he met his end at the gallows, maintaining his stoic, unrepentant demeanor to the very last minute.
So he was a sociopath through and through. Like, you don't get up to the gallows and be like, all right, do it.
100%.
And not be a sociopath. I'm just saying.
Yeah, 100%. Like, this guy had no remorse, almost like no fear of death in a way. He really didn't even have a fear of getting caught.
It's wild because he didn't give a shit from a certain point. He grew up as a weird kid, joined med school as a weird kid, became a weird human, like adult who did fucked up shit, and then died as one as well. And this is the most cut and dry shit I've ever heard in my life.
I mean, he's the proto serial killer of America. He basically paved the way for the Gacy's, the Bundys, the BTK killer, and Samson.
In his autobiography he wrote while he was awaiting his trial and sentencing, he wrote, "I could not help the fact that I was a murderer, no more than a poet can help the inspiration to sing." Like that.
That's some heavy
This man
shit.
said, "I'm a bard of death."
Oh, dude, that's such a better nickname than Devil of the White City, the Bard of Death.
I mean, look, that's a poetic thing he's saying in general. Look, I'm not condoning, but that's some fucking literary level shit. That's all.
So one thing I read was that in like the century, over a century after his execution, there were still rumors speculating that, you know, like he was such a con artist and everything that he had like bribed some officials and swapped out his own body with another one, and that like he didn't actually get hung. And this rumor mill went on for so long that it wasn't until 2017 that his family or like his descendants got his body exhumed to get DNA tests done on it to make sure he actually was the one that was hung. And it turned out it was.
Okay.
But I love that like
he's
for
still
over
out
100
there.
Years, people were like, yeah, he could still be
Jack
out there.
the Ripper shit. But that does answer a question I had, where basically, like, did he have kids? Like, were they normal? Like,
if he had kids, there's no account that I found of them. I guarantee, like, with how much he got around, I'm sure he has some bastards floating around there.
Mm-hmm.
But you mentioned Jack the Ripper. A lot of people speculated that H.H. Holmes was Jack the Ripper, which I don't believe for a second.
Well, he would have had to been in England, right?
He would have had to be in England, but Jack the Ripper was going on, and I feel like Holmes was just like, wait till they get a load of me, kind of a thing. And there are people that speculated that he did he is Jack the Ripper and he did all the killings in England, and then after he depleted everything in England, he moved over to America, which I just don't.
Yeah, it was like It was like at the exact same time. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah,
That's
and
wild.
I mean, maybe he was. I don't know. Like, don't assume anything, right? But
I mean, they always said like the Black Dahlia murder was medically trained. So,
but it just wasn't like the reason I don't believe it is Jack. It wasn't his MO. You know, the way Jack the Ripper, like, yeah, Jack the Ripper's killings were all very sexual. He'd cut the tits off of women and everything like that. Whereas Holmes would just sell them. You know, I just don't think it's the same.
He would sell the tits?
No, Jack the Ripper would cut off boobas off of ladies and genital, and he would eviscerate genitals and all that.
All I'm saying is you followed it up as H.H. Holmes would sell them, and so my immediate thought
was
like,
H.H. Holmes sold skeletons and cadavers. Jack the Ripper cut boobies off,
and H.H. Holmes would cut tits off and then sell them to somebody.
I mean,
as a doctor, he could attach them to somebody.
All right, I'm gonna settle this right now. There is no possible way that H.H. Holmes could have been Jack the Ripper, because the murders from Jack the Ripper all were between the months of August and November of 1888, and H.H. Holmes was caught up in a fierce court battle with his architects and steel company for refusing to pay them for all those murder shoots.
Or he had somebody go and represent him, and he was just hightailing it. Like now we're just getting tinfoil hat. But
like I said, 1888. Everyone had that mustache, man.
It could have been anybody.
It's
like Ryan,
true.
You shave your beard right now, and you just keep that mustache. You're H.H. Holmes. Like
I'm H.H. Holmes.
I knew it.
Dude, so many shoots.
So many shoots.
Ladders.
I'd actually I don't think the castle's still there anymore. Unfortunately.
No. So it did the upper two stories did burn down, and then they were rebuilt, but like it sat there empty for a long time, and then the city finally tore it down, and now it is a post office. And apparently they still hear creepy shit when they go down to the basement. There's weird sounds and smells, and they think they see things.
I want to thank everybody for listening to the show. A little call to action. Please, guys, comment, like, and subscribe to the movies to help us, or the videos to help us combat the algorithm monster. It helps us a ton. And as always, check out our merch. The best way to support us is to buy our merch. We will be getting some more merch up ASAP. And as always, if you love the show, please tell all your friends. If you hated the show, keep your mouth shut. Now, that being said, I'm Zach. This is Ryan, and that's Steven. Have a
That's
good night.
me. Have a good one. Bye.